Hello, tchotchkes. Welcome back to another episode of the Cha Cha Beat. What do you want to be when you grow up? This is not something that I ever really gave much thought to. As a child and as a teenager, like through high school, I was much too preoccupied with whether or not people liked me and being included and invited to, like, actually have any hobbies. Like, my hobby, I guess if you wanna call it that, was being self-conscious about whether or not people liked me. And actually, I think that was my hobby in college too. In college, I expanded my hobbies to smoking pot, smoked a lot of pot in college, and for that, majored in religion and philosophy, fields in which I never really had to take a single test. All of my grades were pretty much through like writing papers, which I was really good at doing. I was really good at writing papers. I was really good at writing philosophy papers whilst high. One of my favorite things to do was pull an all-nighter writing a 10-page philosophy paper and just seeing what I was able to come up with when, like, put against the pressure of the clock. And so when I entered the real world after I graduated from college, I needed to make money. I had $2,000 in my account that my grandparents had given me as a graduation present, which was to pay my first month's rent at my sublet on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, New York City, where I moved like 2 days after I graduated from college. So, in order to start making some money, I reverted back to one of the few skills that I actually had besides smoking pot and writing papers: waitressing. I got a job waitressing at a restaurant called the Boat Basin. I'm actually really sad to say that I don't think it exists anymore. I think it's shut down now, but the Boat Basin was an outdoor nautical themed restaurant right on the Hudson River overlooking the 79th Street Boat Basin, which is where all the boats would dock in that area of the river. Had a view of New Jersey, the sunset, along Riverside Park. So in order to get there, I would walk from my apartment down Riverside Park, and I was making pretty decent money, cash in hand, more than enough to be paying my rent, and I had a great summer. But, my parents came along and they're like, "You cannot be a waitress when you grow up. Like, a waitress is not a real job. You need to get a real job, Chach. And a real job means that you have health insurance and a 401k. So what am I like? I had a college degree, obviously, but like didn't really have any skills or knowledge. Like, what could I actually do? So thinking about what I actually did in college, I was pretty good at writing papers. So publishing, I'm going to go into publishing. My first job was a temp position at Simon and Schuster Publishing, at which point I realized I was there for a couple months and realized, like, book publishing was a little boring, and where the magic really was, where the editorial spark really was in magazines. So at that point, I became like obsessed with Martha Stewart's magazines because they were just so beautiful, like the layout, the display, the colors, the creativity that went into a Martha Stewart publication was just everything I wanted to be. So I obsessively applied to jobs at Martha Stewart, and within a few months, I got a job in the marketing department, and that's where I remained for the next 2 years. I eventually had to leave that position because, like I said, I was in the marketing department, not the editorial department. This was 2008 to 2010, so the magazine publishing industry was getting just decimated by the changing landscape of the digital world that we were entering, and no one was hiring editorial. If anything, they were just laying them off in droves. And so, despite a lot of effort and attempts to transfer to the editorial department, I was just constantly denied. I was stuck in the marketing department doing spreadsheets, which I hated, and I just complained. I just bitched all day. And you don't know this because you're not like seeing me in person, but I have like a really loud voice. Like even when I'm trying to not be loud, I'm being loud. And this is 20 years ago. At this point in my life, I've gotten like a lot better at controlling the volume of my voice. But back then, I really had no concept of like how loud I was actually being. And so I would just like complain all day loudly about how much I hated my job, to the point where my boss, my manager, and the senior vice president of marketing had to pull me into an office and say, "You do not like your job. We love having you here. You are a great addition to our team. You are welcome to stay, but you need to stop complaining. You need to stop complaining, accept that this is the job that you have, and start doing it." They gave me 72 hours to decide what I wanted to do. Essentially, it was like an ultimatum. Either you can stay here and stop complaining, or you need to move on. And after, I don't know, like an hour of thinking about it, I knew that it was time I needed to move on. My next stint of jobs all kind of were on the peripheral of this dream I had. At this point, I was in love with the idea of being a writer, of being a creative within this magazine industry. This is like post Sex and the City, where Carrie Bradshaw was like a spiffy writer and like seemed to make a career out of it. So at this point, it was like pretty glamorized in my head of like, all I want is to be a writer. And so, in order to become a writer, I kind of shifted my career from marketing and spreadsheets to be a copywriter. Like, that's writing, isn't it? So I became a copywriter, and my next like stint of jobs, which spanned from New York City to the job that I eventually got in California that moved me out here, the job that moved me to San Diego, the job that moved me to San Francisco, job that moved me back down to San Diego. They were all copywriter positions. Some of them were better than others. Some of the corporate experiences were better than others. I had health insurance. I had a 401k. So my parents were very happy, especially, Martha Stewart was quite a name on my resume. But now, like, I'm working for companies like Intuit and Cisco, like tech companies, very fancy. But this is not what I wanted to be when I grew up. I didn't want to be a copywriter. And you can't stay a copywriter forever, especially like in corporate. You got to move up that ladder, like senior copywriter, maybe. But I didn't want to be a senior copywriter because then you had to deal with all the copywriters below you. And it was a lot of extra work of just like corporate bullshit that you had to like pretend to care about. And I could just like never care that much about the jobs that I had. Well, that's not totally true. My first job as a copywriter, the first job that I had with copywriter in the title, I was working for an ad agency in New York City, and I was pretty much obsessed with the job. I gave them everything I had. I was working late on proposals. Like sometimes I wouldn't go home until like 1, 2 in the morning because I was at the office, like working on proposals the whole night. And then, I would go home, I would sleep for 3 hours, and then I would just go back the next day at 9 a.m. and do it all over again. Like I was obsessed with giving them all I had because like I could be a writer. Like all I have to do is show them that I've got it, that I'm talented enough to be a writer. And this is great. It's all gonna work out. And I got laid off. Within a year, I no longer had that job, not because of lack of talent or dedication on my part, but because of lack of money on their part. That experience was like wide eye opening for me because that is when I learned that the job is never going to love you back. no matter what corporate job I have, no matter what I give them, no matter how much I care, no matter what eloquence of copy I write, it's never going to love you back. You are just a disposable employee at the end of the day. And as soon as they need to cut costs, goodbye. They don't care. And so after that job, I pretty much vowed to myself that I'm never going to be so heart invested in a corporate job ever again, because no matter how much I love it, it's never going to love me back. And I didn't want to be in a one sided relationship. So I kept on trucking along, another decade went by in which I have these corporate copywriter positions. Along the way, my title got changed to like digital copy producer or digital content producer, just all euphemisms for copywriter, essentially, which I was happy with because I loved being known as writer. Like that's really all I ever wanted. It's all I ever wanted. It's all I ever wanted once I was like forced to decide what I wanted as like an adult working woman in New York City. Like at that I got to the point where like I had to pick a career. And so I'm like, that one. Can I smoke pot while I do this? Great. Excellent. But the thing is, and pot aside, as I had these jobs, I was never happy. I was never truly challenged or invested or fulfilled or satisfied in these positions. They really were just a paycheck, a 401k, health insurance. And I'm not saying those things aren't great and they're not important, but another way to say all those things is like the golden handcuffs. I was wearing some pretty tight golden handcuffs where that it was enough reason to stay. Like, why would I leave? I've got a comfortable paycheck coming to me. I'm really not working that hard because I pledged to myself that I was never going to work that hard again because, when you get laid off, you just regret all the hours that you gave them. So I'm not working that hard, getting a paycheck, got a 401k, got health insurance. Life is pretty great, except for the fact that I'm bored and angry all the time. And if not, I'm not bored and angry, it's because I'm like tired and burnt out from having to go to the office every day, even on days where I just feel so wilted and crashed out and I just have like horrible cramps or migraine. And the last thing I want to do is go to work, but you got to go to work. So I have all these jobs and just like fucking miserable, but you this is what it is. You can't be miserable when you've got this great paycheck and the 401k and the health insurance. Like these things should make you happy. Well, when I got laid off from my last corporate job, because really, if you stay at a corporate job long enough, that's how it's going to end these days. It's really just a game of chicken. Like, am I going to leave first or am I going to get laid off first? There's really no like, oh, a 10-year long career at this one place, especially when like I don't have any aspirations of like climbing up like the phony ladder of like corporate lingo and like caring about corporate shit. So when I got laid off from my last job and it became clear that it's time to start applying again, start looking at the copywriter positions again, the digital producer. Ooh, so fancy. And I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And honestly, tchotchkes, I know I am so lucky. I am in a very position of privilege because I do have a man that, he owns our house, he pays our mortgage, he pretty much provides and protects for me. I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. Don't think that I managed to like actually save a lot of money from like what I was earning. Yes, I have my money in my 401ks. Sure, like that I can't touch until I'm retired, but like whatever salary I was making, like it's gone. It's all gone. I for not having a plan of what I want to be when I grew up. I also didn't have a plan of what I wanted to save my money for. So if I didn't have Justin, my hero, I would have to get back on that corporate horse and start begging for jobs of, oh, please hire me. And, I don't know. I can't even like give you a like little fake spiel of like corporate bullshit that they want you to say when you do the interviews, because like at this point it's been 2 years and I have like rid myself of like all of that lingo and never want to go back to saying any of those buzzwords ever again. But, like, the thought of having to do that, to have to apply for jobs, and, like, Justin could see, like, he had eyes and ears, like, he could see how miserable I was at all of these jobs, how much I've always hated them, how much I complained that it wasn't making me happy or fulfilled, and all it did was just drain me and make me, like, a negative, bitter woman, and he's like, "I don't want you to be negative and bitter," like, that's not any fun for him, so he supported my decision to not go back to the corporate grind, to not apply for new corporate positions, to not try and get the next corporate job, and I have returned to my first love, my first taste of employment, not smoking pot. I have since stopped smoking pot because I realized that it was fine while I was very negative and miserable at my job. It was like I would drink alcohol, but, like, when people, like, have, like, a drink at the end of the day, like, I would so much rather smoke pot. Like, it made my brain feel relief from all the corporate bullshit. But now I don't need that anymore. I'm not miserable or angry anymore. So I have since given up the pot. I have returned to my very first employment skill set. I am a 41-year-old waitress, waitressing amongst a bunch of 22-year-olds at a local restaurant. But I'm happy. Like, I love the hustle of it. I love the eye contact that you make with people. I love that I don't need to, like, be fake or phony. I'm not trying to get a promotion. I'm not trying to, like, be, like, corporate lingo. I don't have to sit through meetings. I love that every day, every shift is different. I love that I'm on my feet moving around the whole time. I don't have to sit at a desk and just be like static. Because the truth is, when I was working these corporate jobs and I was sitting at a desk all day, the last thing I wanted to do was come home and work on my actual passion of writing my book. Have I mentioned, tchotchkes? I'm writing a book. It's called Let Me Out, I'm Stuck. It's a memoir, and it pretty much tracks the story of my 20s through, well, probably my late 30s. Let's see, I haven't written the ending yet, but it is a great story. It is written in first person present tense, so pretty much unlike any memoir you've ever read. And the best part about it is that you don't need to read it in order. You can pick up a beat or an excerpt from chapter 15 and read it and know exactly what's going on and get a full story out of it. Or you can go to chapter 2 or chapter 4. Like, you don't need to read it in order. Every beat is like a little story unto itself. Where can I read Let Me Out, I'm Stuck? Well, tchotchke, duh, you have to go to my website, chachabeat.com, and that's where you're going to find all the excerpts from Let Me Out, I'm Stuck. Just give one a read. Try something different. I feel like everything out there is like so redundant and boring and kind of like copying something else. Well, that's what redundant is. Duh. But you know what I mean, tchotchkes. This is a completely original idea. It is a completely new perspective, point of view, putting out into the culture that I'm just trying to, like, yes, share my story, but I want to represent all of the stories out there of, I'm not like a famous person. I don't have cancer or like some terminal disease. Like, this is not that kind of story. It's just a coming of age story that everyone can relate to of just figuring out who you are, what you want, and kind of the trials and tribulations that come along with that. So head to chachabeat.com where you can read Let Me Out, I'm Stuck. And the reason that you are able to do that, to go to chachabeat.com and read excerpts from Let Me Out, I'm Stuck, is because since I have been laid off from my last corporate job and I no longer am required to sit in front of a computer doing mind numbing work all day and just feeling sedated all day because I'm just not interested in what I'm doing. I I am now waitressing and I'm on my feet and I'm moving around. I now have the desire to spend my free time at my computer writing the story and coming here and learning how to podcast. Like I know that like I'm still a beginner at this tchotchkes. Like I've got it. I know I'm long-winded. I know that it can take me a little while to get to my point. I've got it all. And I know that I'm talking about myself. Yes, this is a podcast about me. But just like my book, it's about all of us. It's about the human experience. I'm just trying to be honest with like what I'm going through because I want someone else to feel empowered to be like, oh, maybe I'm not the only one, and just feel a little bit more confident or a little less lonely in what they're going through. I'm not trying to be like a huge production, I'm not trying to read from a script, I'm not trying to be an actress. I'm not trying to be anything or present anything to you other than where I'm at right now. And where I'm at right now is maybe what I want to be when I grow up, which is kind of an amazing idea. And it is scary that in order to get there, I have to let myself be really bad at this. I have to practice and I have to be a beginner. And if I want to be a writer and write something that people actually read, I have to share it with people and tell people about it and direct them to chachabeat.com to read my book, Let Me Out, I'm Stuck. I have to talk about it. I have to shout about it from in front of the microphone, not the rooftops, in front of the microphone. I'm scared of heights. I'm not, this is like scary enough. I'm not like doing it on a rooftop because that's just like, that's too many scary things all at once. Maybe one day. But anyway, my point is that like I'm 41 years old and I'm just starting to figure out or not figure out what I want to be when I grow up. I'm just starting to let myself be what I want to be when I grow up. And I think about it sometimes of like, what if back in 2007, I didn't get that first corporate job? What if I stood up to my parents and said, no, I'm going to keep waitressing and I'm going to play around with my creativity and I'm going to keep writing and I'm going to figure out how I can turn my creativity into a career. I mean, back then we didn't have YouTube, so and like blogging was like, barely a thing in 2007. Facebook was barely a thing. Instagram didn't exist. So it was just like a totally different world back then. So like I don't know what I would have come up with. And I am grateful that I have that 401k money stocked away that, I may I may have no money right now because I'm making like pennies at my waitressing job compared to what I was making in my six-figure corporate job. So I may have no money right now, but when I turn 65, I'm going to be doing okay. I'm grateful for that money, but I do wonder, like, what would I be at if I had started this venture 20 years ago? I don't know. But also, like, does it matter? It doesn't even matter because I'm here now. And so are you. Thank you so much for being here, tchotchkes. Please let me know in the comments, what do you want to be when you grow up? Are you that now? Or do you have like these crazy creative aspirations that if you could only figure out how to like actually take that leap of faith. I mean, this is quite a leap of faith. And yes, I have a little bit of a safety net living with Justin. We live in this house that he owns. I mean, there's a mortgage, but he does own the house. But like, this house is literally falling apart. Everything is old, everything is cracked, everything is broken. And at this point, we are both just kind of getting by. We both have very over ambitious goals for ourselves. Justin owns a small plumbing company, and he is just, he gives it all he's got. And sometimes that's all of his money, and then the money comes back, and then he has no money, and then the money comes back. Plumbing it's never going to go out of business. It is recession proof. It is technology proof. As someone who had been laid off like 5 times in my life before I met him, I found it to be very sexy to meet a man that is never going to be unemployed. He's never going to have to beg for a job or even look for a job. The jobs come looking for him. So, he has steady, reliable employment, but, if you've got to spend money to make money. So if he wants to build his business up, he has to put time and energy and money into it, which means that time and energy and money are not going into this house. And I do not want to live in this house forever, tchotchkes. Justin has lived in this house forever. He's lived in this house since he was like 8 years old. His parents never owned it. They never saved money. They just rented it. And then in 2016, his parents had long moved out, but he had the opportunity to buy it. So he did. So, we're still here, and I am putting all of my faith into this leap that the Cha Cha Beat, Let Me Out, I'm Stuck, this podcast, all of you tchotchkes are just the beginning of all of my dreams coming true. And one day, when I tell my parents about the Cha Cha Beat, because believe you me, tchotchkes, at this point, they do not know that it exists. They know that I got laid off from my job. They know that I am waitressing again, which they have opinions about, but they do not know that after 40 years of them telling me, you can't, don't try, don't even think about it, you're not special, it's not worth it, you're going to fail, that I've decided, despite all of that, I just can't take it anymore. I can't be miserable and sedated anymore. I have to go for it. I have to know whether or not all of these ideas I have, all this creativity that I have to know if I can turn it into some kind of career. So here we go, tchotchkes. Please buckle up. Please join the ride. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, check out my website, chachabeat.com, so you can read excerpts from Let Me Out, I'm Stuck. And until next time, keep calm and cha-cha on.
Cha cha cha.